It's a new adventure here at Sweet D's RPGs. This time we're kicking it old school with Eight Petals Argent. Part heist, part dungeon crawl, where we search for the MacGuffin in Waterdeep's oldest and poorest catacombs. First, we gotta get there. Join us as we play Domin, a dwarf rogue who grew up on the streets of Waterdeep before leaving home to try to make it as an adventurer. It didn't quite work as planned, and she wasn't quite as successful as she has hoped. But when her friends back in Waterdeep ask for help, she returns home in a heartbeat to help them with one last big heist that should set them for life. Or at least make it so that they can keep the roof over their head. This adventure is more of a traditional D&D adventure with lots of choices and potential mishaps. While I don't think it's going to flip too many tropes on their head, it's got enough twists and turns for maximum replayability. As always, if you want to join in on the fun, you can join our live streams on Sundays and help make choices for Domin. But for now, here's part 1 of Eight Petals Argent. Prologue. Coming home. Again, you throw your weight on the hauling line. Again, the bundle lurches after you, churning up dust in your wake. Having reached the top of the rise, you pause in late-day heat to wipe the grit from your brow. The valley spreads out below you, the high road wending through it, stretching toward Waterdeep on the coast. You look back at the sight of your comically teetering companions, Habrad and Glutch, were both with you when the coach from Daggerford broke down. You suggested the two elderly gnomes wait with the driver for the next coach, but they assured you that their innovative telescoping boots would lengthen their strides to match their own. Cobble hops, Habrad called their magical footwear when he strapped on his pair. Just what a gnome needs to see over the crowds this year. To demonstrate, he sprung up as high as a troll on stilts, then immediately lost his balance, staggering across the roadway in long, careening strides. Only the gnome's equally improbable telescoping walking cane. My hobblecop, he called it, saved Habrad from a dangerous fall. Habrad and Glutch are priests of Gond, and they are understandably fascinated by such inventions. They are heading to Waterdeep for the annual Day of Wonders celebration. People will come for miles to watch tomorrow's grand parade of the temple's many amazing automatons and other colorful creations. For Gond's priests, celebration is a chance to meet and trade tales of their work in the outlying villages. More important to Habrad and Glutch, it is also time to turn in their official invention diaries at the House of Inspired Hands, showcasing creations like this magic footwear, and exchange those diaries for new, blank journals. Despite the gnomes' excitement for the cobble hops, you quickly discover that their long, springy strides are ill-suited to pulling heavy loads. To stop the gnomes' complaints about you outpacing them, you soon found yourself dragging their luggage through the sweltering heat. Now, with Waterdeep finally in sight, your relief is palpable. You'll arrive by nightfall just a few hours late. You look forward to ridding yourself of this luggage and the two gnomes who trail you like swaying drunken storks. Where would we be without our cobble hops? Glutch muses from beneath the shady brim of his priest's hat. They're going to be magic during the parade. The taller gnome stops to take his portly friend's hand. No one's going to block your view this year, he says earnestly. I promise. Your greatest invention is friendship, Habrad replies warmly, squeezing Glutch's skinny fingers. The uncomfortably touching moment between elderly gnomes cools your annoyance with them. You think it must be a comfort to have a true friend with you on the road. Your thoughts turn to your own friends, who you left behind in Waterdeep when you struck out to find adventure. Unbidden, your hand settles on the letter in your pocket, the invitation you got a 10-day ago. Rufio wants to meet and catch up on old times. You've been hesitant to go back, too proud to admit that your adventuring career hasn't been as successful as you hoped. But the direct invitation is one you can't ignore. Today you'll see your friends again. Well, perhaps today is the wrong word, you think wryly. Maybe you'll get there by tonight. Again, you throw your weight against the hauling line, continuing towards the city. The sun is dipping low in the west, touching the trackless sea by the time you reach Waterdeep. You bypass the southern gate in hopes of finding a thinner crowd at the eastern entry, but the wait is still a long one. A large bonfire burns on either side of the road as travelers queue to enter the city. Most of these people have come for tomorrow's parade. They'll cram into lodgings tonight anywhere they can find them. Some even have small tents intending to camp along the Way of the Dragon to preserve prime parade watching spots. A few of the visitors have already begun their celebrations, singing, drinking, and talking loudly as they move into the city. As you pass under the arch of the river gate, a cool coastal breeze blows over you, welcoming you back to Waterdeep. You hand Glutch the hauling line for his luggage and say your terse farewells. The gnomes are thankful for your help, but eager to get to the House of Inspired Hands in the Sea Ward. They drag their bundle westward, disappearing into the crowd. With River Street still packed full of carts and pedestrians, you decide to skip the crowds and cut north through the back alleys of the Trades Ward, your gang's old stomping grounds. In a matter of minutes, you're stepping into the broad alley at the center of Slipstone Street. You find the gang's rickety old wagon parked next to a familiar, narrow stairway up to the second-floor apartments. In the light of nearby street lamps, you see the lower floor of the building, once a warehouse, is now a busy bakery. That's not the only change here. Many shops have new names or sell different wares, and everything seems a bit shabbier than you remember it. The economy hasn't been good to the residents of this quiet neighborhood. You enter the planning room. A long, narrow space dominated by heavy wooden table used for eating, planning, and meetings of various sorts. The room is full of smells of baking bread, even at this hour. The bakery below the hideout is preparing to serve an unusually large crowd tomorrow morning. The planning room seems smaller than you remember it. Instead of being cramped, it feels cozy and warm. The cloak rack remains broken just as you remember it, but now it supports drying herbs that hang in tight bundles. Someone has painted a mural of birds and clouds over the corner kitchenette. A tiny string of clockwork toys, Belle's handicrafts, hang over the window. A single boot rests in a position of honor on a shelf, a prize that 11-year-old latchboy stole from a member of the City Watch. You find memories in every corner of the room, some of which were evolved in the making of. The arrival of two more friends interrupts your reverie. They enter from the hallway to the private quarters. Rufio lights up when he sees you, radiating the light of his celestial heritage with a warmth that matches his smile. From behind him, Belle makes a wordless cry of joy. The gnome rushes to hug you, and you feel the strength in her arms and the crush of the ringmail she wears beneath her cloak. You embrace Rufio in turn, and then the four of you draw back a set of mismatched chairs to sit at the table, eager to catch up on old times. You learn that your friends all stayed together after you left to find adventure, struggling to make a living here in the Trades Ward. Times are tough now, and the rest of the gang is out doing odd jobs. Night work on the dock pays better than the labor on this side of the city. Most of the gang's jobs are legitimate now, since everyone is old enough to turn an honest trade. However, they keep all their old contacts, one of which facilitated a job the gang is preparing to do this very night. You notice that each of your friends is wearing a dark traveling cloak, as though preparing to go out. "We got your reply, so we thought you'd arrive hours ago," Rufio says. "The coach never arrived, and we'd just given up on you making it tonight." You explain how the coach broke down and how you walked all afternoon alongside some very unhelpful companions. Although tired, you tell them you're happy to help with whatever caper they've planned. Your friends grin at each other. "Now that you've gone off and become a real adventurer," Latchboy says, "we were hoping you'd lend us some of that expertise." "This is the job," Rufio begins. "There's a new faction in the city, academics of some sort. They're called the Seekers. No one knows what they're about, but they've been buying up historic curios. They're paying cold gold for some very wild things. Over the last year, the Seekers financed some of the city's strangest scavenger hunts. Everyone's joining in, and the competition's getting nasty. We thought about getting involved early on, but some people got hurt. it wasn't worth the risk until now. Yeah, Summer got her arm broken by the Perrytons just for asking questions, Latchboy interrupts. You remember the gang called the Crimson Perrytons, a small but nasty group bent on expanding their turf out of the docks ward. They clashed with the Slipstone gang more than once, but nothing really came of it. You also remember Summer, a local tiefling musician and adventurer. Many members of the district like Summer, and she helped the Slipstone gang several times. Rufio assures you that Summer is all right before he continues. She doesn't participate in the scavenger hunts anymore. No real harm done. From his chair, Latchboy mimes the pain of broken arm as though disagreeing with Rufio's assessment. The latest request from the Seekers is the seal of the House Deep Winter, for which they are offering 12 harbor moons, Rufio says. The Deep Winter family is part of the city's history from centuries back. They ran a guild of jewelers. Although they died out in a war fought among the guilds, they still have an entire mausoleum named for them in the City of the Dead. Since the Seekers put out the call last 10 day, people have been trying to break into the vault to see if the seal is with the House Primarch. City Watch got wind of it and posted guards around the cemetery district, particularly around Deep Winter Vault. To date, no one's got it, let alone found the seal, and the deadline for the reward is tomorrow. You wonder how Rufio plans to get into the Deep Winter's Primarch's tomb if it's so well guarded. Other groups will surely try tonight, and with the deadline looming, some of which may include professional thieves or adventurers. So, we go into the City of the Dead, but don't break into the Deep Winter Vault. Instead, we'll head for the House of the Homeless. No one will be watching that. Despite Rufio's infectious confidence, you can't help but feel trepidation about the plan. You unfold Ace's instructions. The small square of parchment contains a simple map, which you take a few moments to memorize before putting in your pocket. I'm sorry we have to rush out like this, Rufio says. This isn't a proper welcome for your return, but time is against us. No Nap and Too Small aren't back from their night jobs yet. We'll have to have a welcome breakfast when we're all back here safe. With that, Rufio, Belle, and Latchboy get up and begin to gather the last of their equipment for a nighttime adventure. Since you haven't had any time to unpack, you stay seated at the table, already prepared to go. As you wait, a stack of papers catches your eye. The top sheet is thin enough that you can read the large print inked onto the other side. It reads, Notice, Eviction and Forfeiture. You flip over the page and find some legal lingo about overdue rents and a judgment from the Common Court naming your friends Rufio, No Nap, and Too Small. The gang owes a large sum immediately, and the paper warns that forfeiture agents will arrive any day to receive the gold, to seize things of value in lieu of payment, or to evict the residents. The gang's financial troubles are more dire than you guessed. Concerned for your friends, you feel justified prying a little deeper. When the others are all out of the room, you flip through the stack of papers until you find something else of interest. One of the papers is a receipt written in calligraphic script. It's for a diamond valued at 500 gold pieces, a spell component for the local Zorstar temple to raise Rufio Rudra from the dead. The date is 1 year ago. You surmise that Rufio died last year, and the gang had to borrow money to pay for his return. No wonder they're desperately working all the time. The 12 harbor moons the Seekers are offering, together worth 600 pieces of gold, would help to fend off the creditors, for a while at least. Ready, Latchboy says, approaching the door while fitting his arm through a long coil of rope hanging it across his torso. Me too, says Rufio. Belle shoulders her own rope, then signs to show readiness. The four of you walk into the warm night, and that moment standing beside your old friends and preparing to go on an adventure, you feel right at home, like you never left Waterdeep. 2. The City of the Dead. The night air is warm as you leave the hideout ahead of your friends. You step onto the landing overlooking the alley adjoining Slipstone Street. The neighborhood seems deserted, but you still hear some noisome crowds on the high road, just a block south of you. The city is alive with distant revelry. Your companions each recheck their equipment, and Rufio produces a heavy key to lock the hideout's door. Instead of descending the wooden staircase to street level, Belle grabs a dangling rope that lies hidden in the shadow of a drainpipe. Each of your companions climbs the knotted rope in turn, and you follow them up 3 stories to the tiled rooftops. A surprisingly strong wind here blows warm off the sea. From your vantage, you look out over Waterdeep. Rows of street lamps wind like rivers through the dark across the city, and you can see crowds moving slowly in the light of public squares. To the west, not half a mile away, you see the rise of Castle Waterdeep spires. The castle stands on a hill overlooking the city. Long banners add color to the structure's outer walls lit by magical lights. Your group picks its way north along the steeply angled rooftops, climbing and jumping carefully where the roofs vary in height. You pass quietly by the Zorstar Temple, rising several stories above the other buildings on the block, and continue north to Nethpranter's Street. A single block remains between you and the walls that surround the City of the Dead. You are preparing to descend to ground level when Rufio grabs your arm. "Look here," he says, pointing to an alley across the street. You look and see 6 figures skulking in the darkened courtyard of a guild hall. They are out of sight from passerbys on the street, but you make them out clearly from your vantage. "Puritans," whispers Latchboy. "We should go teach them not to look so ugly while loitering in our territory." You are surprised to hear that Crimson Puritans are operating so closely to Slipstone Street. Your gang's rivals seem to have grown bolder since you left Waterdeep. Rufio shakes his head at the suggestion. "That's not what we're about tonight. Or ever, really. Let's just implement our plan." The 4 of you back away from the edge of the roof, and Rufio fills you in on what's to come. "We're gonna go in teams." Rufio turns to you. "You've got experience, so you're leading one of the teams." You remember with some discomfort how your friends overestimate your adventuring experience. You wouldn't call yourself an experienced adventurer. Seeking fortune from the city hasn't really worked out for you, but somehow this doesn't seem like the right time to admit such things to your friends. Rufio looks to me. "Choose Latchboy or Belle to come with you, based on the approach you'd like to take into the City of the Dead," Rufio continues. "Latchboy's plan is just walking in the front gate. If you feel like you can talk your way in, take Latchboy and try to pass yourself off as grave tenders employed by the Carver family." Rufio lets that sink in a moment before describing the other approach. "The second plan has you leaving the city with Belle. You can go out the river gate and into the Undercliff region east of Waterdeep. You have less chance of discovery this way, but it might take longer. And remember, we need to be out of the district before sunrise. If both teams make it through, we'll meet inside the mausoleum, but neither team should wait more than 30 minutes for the other to arrive. One last thing," Rufio says, making eye contact with Latchboy. "Be careful not to kill anyone in the City of the Dead." Something seems to pass between Rufio and Latchboy here. "Nobody needs to get hurt for this, and a dead body would bring down too much heat, particularly if there's a member of the Watch. If it's a member of the Watch. Now, I've been saving this protective scroll for a moment just like this. Hold still, and I'll use it on the 3 of you." Latchboy and Belle don't look happy about this. They seem concerned about the expense of wasting a magic scroll, but Rufio pays them no heed. He unrolls the parchment and reads off the words of power. "An aid spell has now been cast upon you. Your hit point maximum increases by 5 for 8 hours. You also gain 5 current hit points to fill out this new maximum." You think carefully for a few minutes before deciding which route to take. Accompanying Latchboy means doing a lot of fast talking. Going with Belle means crawling through the tunnels and a lot of climbing. So last time I went with Belle, so this time I'm going with Latchboy, just so for the stream I don't know what's going to happen. You choose Latchboy's approach, deciding to walk in through the gate. Following Latchboy's lead, you don the robes and cloak of a grave tender, concealing your adventuring gear beneath the disguise. When you and Latchboy have dressed, your other companions examine you both to make sure your disguises are effective. Rufio and Belle then hurry to the south to find another way down from the roofs, while you and Latchboy move west, preparing to approach the south gate into the City of the Dead. Latchboy leads you to the west side of the block. He is careful to stay out of the view of the Crimson Puritans, who are hiding just across Nethpranter's Street. You find a place where you can drop safely to a balcony, and from there down to street level. Then the 2 of you approach the south gate of the cemetery district. 2 watchtowers flank the southern entrance to the City of the Dead. The broad wooden gate that spans the gap between them is already closed for the night. A guard stands at her station in the top floor of the right-hand tower. Your approach catches her attention. She begins scanning up and down the street, making sure the 2 of you are alone. You can call up to the guard, asking her to let you in so you can attend your nighttime grave-tending duties within. A long moment passes. Then a small door at the base of the tower opens, and a different guard steps out, also a human. He waves you over to speak with him. As you approach, Latchboy lifts his necklace to show the medallion hanging from it, the device that proves your service to the Carvers, the family responsible for grave-keeping duties in the City of the Dead. The guard approaches your companion and examines the medallion, then looks at the both of you up and down. This is the first test of your disguise. Make a charisma check to determine how effectively you wear it. Here we go. Here goes nothing. Purely on the dice. That was almost a 17. Alright, a 7. When the guard examines you and Latchboy, you think you see a gleam of suspicion in his eyes. He walks around the pair of you to get a better look at your outfits. You try not to be nervous as he does so, but you are uncomfortably aware of the other guard watching from above. You try not to imagine her winding a heavy crossbow. Finally, the guard comes back around to you and asks, "Why are you coming in the south gate? I thought all the grave tenders used the underground entrance from the Carver estate." Owing the guard's attitude of continuing suspicion, you decide it's safest just to offer a bribe. The City of the Dead isn't exactly important when it comes to guard duties. It has little to do with Waterdeep security. You therefore estimate that a bribe of 5 or 10 gold dragons will suffice. Is that gold? Oh, all my gold? If you don't have enough coins for these options, you can offer objects from your inventory with a total purchase price of double the values listed. I've got nothing nice in my inventory. I was not a successful adventurer. So we'll just spend all our coin. It's fine. We don't need it. We're going into the dungeon. You hold out the bribe casually. The guard looks left and right before taking it, and then signals you both to proceed into the watchtower. You walk through the ground floor, past another guard sitting at a table, and out a small door on the far side. Both doors stud closed after you pass through them. You've made it into the City of Dead. There is also an event, alert level low. You enter the cemetery district through the south gate. The first thing you notice is the pervasive darkness. Major city streets get light from innovative street lamps, but there has never been a need to light the City of the Dead. The entire district is closed to visitors after sundown. "I'm gonna have some trouble seeing," says Latchboy, and you think he might be contemplating one of the torches in his backpack. However, you point out the glittering trails that crisscross the area. The night is clear, and moonlight reflects from the quartzite content in the district's gravel pathways. The 2 of you should have no trouble navigating if you stick to the road. To either side of the glittering paths, the City of the Dead's shadowy terrain is much like a park. Indeed, daytime visitors often picnic in the areas of carefully manicured grass, decorative shrubs, and shade trees, which intermingle with wilder copses of forest. Agents of the Carver family are responsible for the maintenance of these beautiful garden-like areas, in addition to their work embalming and interring the dead. You and your companion follow the path north to an intersection right in front of the first of the cemetery's great edifices, the Hall of Sages. The mausoleum rises against the night sky ahead of you, nestled among rows of tall, flowering bushes. Paths lead to the left and right, moving around the Hall of Sages and its related buildings. You know that the House of the Homeless, your ultimate destination, is north of you, on the western side of the cemetery district. Either route can take you to where you are going, but the northwestern route may be the quickest. You lead your companion along the eastern pathway towards an intersection with new paths to go north and south. These 2 paths go around another mausoleum, the Hall of Heroes, along with its related buildings. This grand mausoleum has beautiful blue marble walls, though it looks black in the dim light. As you scan the Hall of Heroes, a guard coming south toward the intersection calls out to you in challenge. However, in the light of the lantern he unshutters, the guard recognizes your grave tender robes and visibly relaxes. "You two, wait a moment," the guard demands. His demeanor is calm but vigilant. He looks like the sort of lizard folk who brooks no arguments. carrying a heavy mace. His face paint matches the 3 colors of the watch. Have you seen anything suspicious tonight? You and Latchboy respond in the negative. A consummate actor, your companion does a great job of looking weary and disinterested as he shakes his head. The guard is about to move on when something seems to occur to him. He turns towards you. Say, I don't remember seeing you two before, and I've worked this station for years. We got a report that some grave tender uniforms were stolen from a nearby mortuary. Oh shit. Uh-oh. At this mention, looking past the guard's shoulder, you see your companion blanch. The guard must be talking about the very same uniforms that you are wearing right now. Latchboy takes another quiet step, moving so the lizard folk watch member is directly between you and him. As you begin to protest your innocence, you see that your ally is about to draw a weapon. Uh-oh. The guard seems oblivious to both of you. He simply turns and calls to someone a short distance away. You there! The guard yells out to someone nearby. A small person working in the bushes next to the Hall of Heroes stands up, a shovel in hand, just a stone's throw away. Come here and verify that these 2 people are work for the carvers. The figure approaches, still carrying his shovel. You begin thinking of a cover story, something about a recent date of hire, but this halfling, also wearing the robes of a grave tender, immediately confirms your identity. Yeah, they're with us, no problem. The halfling waves his shovel for emphasis, turns around, and walks quickly to the south. Someone you've never met just vouched for your identities as grave tenders working for the Carver family. You try not to look surprised as the guard grunts and waves you on. Then he walks westward, shining his lantern into the bushes along the path as he goes. You suspect that the halfling is not a Carver agent or a family member, but rather is part of one of the factions that might be trying to break into the deep winter vault tonight. To the north, you see another intersection in the distance. Because you are already near the southeastern corner of the City of the Dead, the south path must loop around the Hall of Heroes and rejoin the intersection that is north of you. It appears that the southern loop will pass near the district's high walls. You follow the south path, which loops around the Hall of Heroes in the southeastern corner of the district. You keep an eye out for anything unusual, but it seems that the loop is abandoned. There are no signs that anyone has been this way tonight. As the loop turns back to the north, a bright beam of light follows over you. Someone on the nearby watchtower is shining a powerful lantern down on the path, illuminating you and Latchboy. Your first impulse is to dive for cover, but that seems like it would draw suspicion. Instead, you decide your only chance is to act normal, as though you belong here, working in the cemetery district after nightfall. You keep walking until you are past the area of illumination. It is only then that you realize that the disguises didn't include any tools for the grave tenders would use for maintaining the garden areas or the mausoleums. Make a deception check. If you happen to have carpenter's tools, mason's tools, a sickle, or a shovel, roll with advantage because you carry the tools that the district tenders might possess. Oh my gosh. That's a terrible looking dice, and that's a terrible... Oh my god, a not one, yo. This was a really bad choice. Maybe that halfling will help us again? I just blurred out, we did it! We're not supposed to be here. I'm sorry. You and Latchboy keep walking as though you have every right to be there. You don't know if you managed to look convincingly casual, but you don't hear any immediate sounds of alarm. Still, if the guard using the search lantern becomes suspicious, one or more members of the watch might be on their way right now, intent on checking your identity and searching the area. Worried about further scrutiny, you hurry away from the lantern's beam. Okay, so event level has gone to medium. You come to a 4-way intersection. Two routes go south to either side of the Hall of Heroes, where 2 more go north around the Lord's Respite. The North Mausoleum and its 3 large statues of former open lords that guard it are made of the same black marble. The shape of the mausoleum is hard to make out at night. The structure seems to possess some fell gravity, absorbing moonlight instead of reflecting it. Your goal lies northwest of you. As you contemplate this, Latchboy mentions that the other northern path would take you farther north than the mausoleum you are seeking. Unwilling to make such a long diversion, you turn northwest towards the House of the Homeless. You proceed along the path towards yet another intersection, this time just south of the Warrior's Monument. This set of stone sculptures stands over 60 feet high and depicts 5 adventurers fighting trolls, orcs, and humans. And the adventurers seem to be getting the upper hand. Unconnected to the stone battlefield, the statue of a charging griffin rider hovers over the fighting, hung in place by magic. As you are approaching the intersection, you notice that the nearby bushes contain a handful of skulking figures. If you continue along the path through the intersection, you will pass near them. Alternatively, you can duck into the west leading path, avoiding the skulkers entirely. Avoiding the hidden figures lurking in the bushes, you lead Latchboy along the western path. You're approaching another intersection when you hear a stampede of heavy footfalls on the gravel ahead, followed by authoritative commands to stop. At first you think the watch has spotted you, but it quickly becomes clear that someone else is their target. A chase is taking place. Runners are approaching the nearby intersection from the north. You drive your companion off the path, slipping through a fragrant, flowering hedge. However, the runners ahead of you don't pass by. It sounds like guards have caught their prey and are now wrestling in the intersection. You hear grunts and yells, and someone calls for her companion to get the manacles. You don't remember the cemetery district ever being this crowded at night, with the intersection behind you full of skulkers and the intersection ahead occupied by members of the watch. You decide to leave the path behind and cut north through the foliage. You pass several small buildings before you come to a sloping dell of short grass. You are amidst the 5 mausoleums that encircle the lowest point in the city of the dead. All the rainwater in the district eventually drains here into a large pond. An overflowing shaft allows excess water from the pond to fall into a drainage pipe far below, where it channels out of the city. Under a nearby bush, a picnic basket lies discarded next to some empty bottles and a broken basket. Deep in the park-like area, you are not in sight of any of the paths that crisscross the district. You recognize the largest, northernmost mausoleum in this area as the Merchant's Rest, a tomb reserved for those who can afford burial in its luxury. From what you can remember of the City of Dead, this mausoleum is right across from your destination, the House of the Homeless, the 2 buildings separated by a single pathway. With your goal almost in sight, you head north, into the shadow of the Merchant's Rest. North of the mausoleum, you find an east-west pathway, across from which stands the House of the Homeless. You wait for a long time, looking each direction, watchful for anyone who might walk by. On your left, the path goes directly to the west gate of the district, and you can see the well-lit watchtowers aiming beams of their oversized lanterns down into the wards on either side of the gate. On your right, you see a flicker of a torch in the distance, and you can hear a conversation, people not trying to hide their voices. However, the lights from both directions fail to reach the place where you intend to cross the path. As you wait, you hear the sudden clash of weapons. An open battle has just broken out east of you. To the south, in what may be a separate conflict, you hear distant cries punctuated by the long note blown on a watch horn. The normally quiet cemetery district is quite active tonight. Amidst these distractions, you move north, slipping across the path and hurrying up the steps into the House of the Homeless. 4 broad steps lead up to an open doorway of the mausoleum. The House of the Homeless is completely unguarded. You enter a large room ringed by tall, open windows, its center dominated by a wide staircase that descends into the catacombs. Around the walls of this room, dozens of small altars and shrines stand sentinel, representing various gods, beggar societies, and other factions of the poor who ended up buried here. Because so many of the dead are nameless, or their final resting plots are uncatalogued, mourners simply leave their flowers, letters, incense, or other offerings on whichever of the altars suits them. Very few mourners descend the stairs into the catacombs or pass through the portal below into the demi-plane itself. Safely within the mausoleum, you sit down to rest, waiting for the other team to arrive. You await for half an hour, and you're about to press on without your other friends, when a silent figure walks up the stairs to the doorway and ducks inside. It's Rufio, and he's alone. "Everything's fine," Rufio says before you can ask. "We just ran into a bit of a trouble, something important that only needed one of us to manage. I'm headed back to help, but I wanted you to come ahead and let you two know to proceed without us. We'll meet you here if we don't catch up." Rufio doesn't give an explanation or wait for a response. he simply turns and disappears into the night. Well, that's a thing that happened. I guess it's just me and Latch Boy. Shall we investigate some shrines? I spent all my gold to bribe the guard, so I'd like to try and find something. Also, I'm a rogue, and both in the game and me myself, I like to touch all the things and find all the things. So, you check the altars for anything of interest. The grave tenders clear the area daily at noon, so there is little to find. They leave the flowers while they remain fresh, but take any offerings of value for a fund to pay for interring other homeless people who die in the city. An iron archway stands at the main hall's far end. The Archmage Anacaster built this fixture and other portals like it in nearby mausoleums 1,000 years ago to relieve overcrowding in the city of the dead. The opaque energy that fills the archway will transport mourners to a demiplane of endless underground catacombs. The grave tenders long ago removed all the bones and cremation jars from the alcoves, moving them to the new resting places in the demiplane beyond the portal. You take a moment to be sure you are remembering your steps correctly. Then the two of you duck under a rope that blocks a side passage, continuing about 20 feet to a dead end. There are no torches here, but some flickering light from the main hall illuminates an ornate grate built over a shaft in the floor. Iron posts near the hole are the only remnant of the lifting apparatus that once lowered visitors to the 4th layer of the catacombs. You find the 10-foot grate to be surprisingly light. You easily lift it from its brick frame and slide it out the other way. The shaft has a faintly musty odor. There must be stagnant water somewhere below. Wasting no time, your companion begins tying a rope to one of the long nearby iron posts. 100 feet of coiled hemp rope into the shaft, and you hear a faint sound as the rope's end hits the ground far below. And we've made it to the end of chapter 1, and we're heading into chapter 2, the deep catacombs. So that's the end of part 1. Is anyone else suspicious about Rufio just running in and running back out again before we had a chance to say or even do anything? This time around, it feels a little more understandable considering all the gangs that were trying to get into the city of the dead. But I can't help but wondering what it's all about. Leave a comment below with your theories. Do you think we'll see the gnomes again? Seems strange to have so much time spent with them and then them just to kind of disappear. It makes me think we might have to use the parade as a cover as we escape. With the MacGuffin? I hope so. Maybe we'll even get to use those hubble cups. Or were they the cobble hubs? Gnome tinkers, am I right? You can join us for the edited version of part 2 next week. If you can't wait, check out this video over here for The Executioner's Daughter. It's a shorter adventure that's finished in one session, and each path has one heck of an ending. You can join us live on Sundays, time zone dependent, of course, to help guide Domin through all the twists and turns she faces as she tries to find the seal of House Deep Winter. That doesn't look creepy at all. We're gonna be fine.